Money Stop Mafia. It's Cole and Steven Cusumano. He is Cole. I am Steven. And together, we are the Cusumano brothers. And we are going to help you make some bank here this week. Race number 2 of the playoffs. We have got 9 weeks left to make you some money. And it has been a season worth of making money for us, for the listeners, and for Chase Briscoe. Round 1 winner in the NASCAR playoffs at Darlington. We talked about this last week, Cole. We predicted the top 3 finishers correctly last week. We also predicted finishers 6th and 7th, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, and we highlighted Ross Chastain, who finished just outside the top 10 in 11th. But, we talked about this for Chase Briscoe, the fact that this was the race that kind of changed his career last year. And, of course, lo and behold, once again, we were talking it up. We were saying, man, he's going to be a player. He is going to be a player these playoffs. I filled out my bracket. I had him in the Final Four because it just felt like he's come of age over the late part of this summer. And I feel like this was a graduation of sorts to really cement himself as one of the, I would say, like 5 or 6 championship favorites, because to win a championship in any sport, you got to be hot at the right time. And that team and driver is hot at the right time.
He is just scorching hot. And yeah, back-to-back Southern 500 winner. That's an insane accomplishment. And like you said, for both of us, he was our dark horse, our sleeper to make the championship 4. And I don't think you can call him that anymore. He has just flat out been dominant the last month and a half or so. All these runner-up finishes, now got the win at Darlington. He has just been so damn good. And just to put a capper on Darlington, that was a flat-out ass-whooping. He just dominated that entire race. It really was not even a competition the entire time from the drop of the green flag. So this team is going to be a force down the stretch. I also want to highlight here, you mentioned that the 5 drivers we highlighted in the top 10 and 6 on the episode last week from Darlington. I was very emphatic on the fact that the Toyotas would tame Darlington, and lo and behold, all 5 drivers in the top 10 that we highlighted were Toyota drivers.
Yeah, you're right.
And we did highlight 7 on the episode, so that was what the moneymaker was last week. And this Darlington race was a great precursor for World Wide Technology Raceway coming up here in St. Louis, because very, very strategy heavy, lots of attrition. There were tons of problems for pretty much every single playoff driver not named Chase Briscoe. And for that's why we had only 5 drivers in the top 10, 6 in the top 11, highlighted from last week's 12 drivers. But this is going to be an interesting one, because this is going to be the 4th time we're going to Gateway. And it's a very, very difficult track, very unique, 4 different corners, not a whole lot of data to go based off of for this weekend, but I think last week was a good reminder that when you have these races like a Darlington, like a World Wide Technology Raceway, you really got to be careful with what you wager on and pick your battles and really just, listen to our advice, basically, because there was money to be made last week with those Toyota drivers that we mentioned, but it's going to be very difficult once again with a track that's relatively unknown in the Cup Series, especially for the playoffs rolling around this time.
Yeah, I'm going with the sure things this week. With all the unknowns that there are, I'm going with the sure things. And that's going to start with our favorites category here, Cole. And another thing I do want to point out is, correct me if I'm wrong, this track is probably the closest we come to Phoenix in the playoffs, right? In terms of a similar kind of track. It's a little over a mile. It's fairly flat. Like, is there a track you would liken more to Phoenix than this one in the next 8 races? Because I don't think there is.
No, it's definitely World Wide Technology Raceway. It's a mile and a quarter. It's a flat, shorter track. You really can't call it a short track because it's over a mile, but it definitely races kind of like a short track. It's very flat, so its profiles very similarly to a Phoenix, a Richmond, a New Hampshire, and there so on and so forth. So this will be a great primer for the Phoenix race, the championship race coming down here on November 2nd. We got just under 2 months left till then, so getting really pumped up. I know you'll be here for that too, so
can't wait.
Lots of money to be made in that time, though.
Yes, and as this is kind of a precursor for Phoenix in some ways, let's jump into our favorites category. These are also 4 drivers we're going to mention that you could argue are favorites to be in the championship for at Phoenix. So I'll kick this one off. I'll start.
Whoa!
What?
You wouldn't even give our top 5 shortest nods.
Oh,
are you kidding me?
I'm too excited to talk about our favorites category, Cole.
Well, let's give the listeners a little, something to work with.
Here's how the sports books open up. All right. And these are pretty much our favorites too. You got Ryan Blaney and Christopher Bell, co-favorites, plus 400. Spoiler alert, they are two of our favorites. You got Denny Hamlin plus 600. You got William Byron plus 700. And Kyle Larson rounds out the top 5 at plus 800. Are we good now?
We covered all the bases, so yeah, we're good to go.
Okay.
Favorite. Lead them off. Let's go.
All right, give me some Christopher Bell this week. Plus 400, co-favorites for the win, 10,500 in daily fantasy. I want to talk about some drivers throughout this episode that did not have the start to the playoffs that they were hoping for. You know, there are teams like Chase Briscoe that get hot at the right time every year. There are also teams in the playoffs that get cold at the wrong time every year. And we've said this a lot with Christopher Bell. When he's hot, he is the best driver in the sport. When he is not, he can go into a little bit of a slump. And so that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to make this pick. But the reason we have Christopher Bell on this outline is because last year he finished 7th at Gateway. That was his career best finish here with 80 laps led. That was the most of any driver, and he swept the stages. So going off of what we have, Christopher Bell is as good a pick you can have at Gateway. At this track, he has 2 top 10s, a lowest finish of 11th, and a 9th place average finish here, which is the 4th best in the sport. He also has the top 5 in average running position, and he has had the most laps spent inside of the top 15. So high floor, high ceiling for Christopher Bell. We've seen that this year. He also won here in the Truck Series 9 years ago in 2016. So I, again, am a little hesitant about Christopher Bell just because of the streakiness we know he can go on. But what I do like is the fact that he has been one of the best drivers at Gateway, including the last time we were there. I also am going to go out and say that Denny Hamlin, another favorite for the championship and another favorite this week at plus 600. He is more expensive than C-Bell in DFS, 10,700. Coming off a good finish at Darlington, a 7th place finish vaulted him up to the top driver in the standings behind those that are locked in, which is just Chase Briscoe at this point. So he is plus 43. And he is riding back-to-back 2nd place finishes at Gateway. He's one of 3 drivers with top 5s in at least 2/3 of his starts here, 2 out of 3 of starts. And he has a top 5 driver rating, 6th in laps spent inside the top 15, average running position as well. So high floor for Denny, and the high ceiling is shown in the back-to-back 2nd place finishes here. He also has 2 prior Xfinity starts at Gateway, including a career best in that series of 3rd. So I'm riding the hot hand here, Cole. I told you at the start of this episode, I want to go with the sure things. And the hot hand is the Toyotas. I know that C-Bell's coming off that bad result, but I feel that the Toyotas they're souped up right now. They're locked in for the playoffs. Like that was, if I had to take one takeaway out of last weekend's race, it is that Chase Briscoe is a player for the championship. If I had to pick a second takeaway, it's that the Toyotas have come out as the best manufacturer in the playoffs, and I'm sticking with that this week.
They've turned it on. That's it for sure in regards to the Toyotas. Not much has to be said on Denny Hamlin. I think pretty much every week going forward until he tells us otherwise, he will be a favorite for the race win on any given day. Christopher Bell, I'm kind of with you there. I think the finish is a little bit misleading from last week. They got tangled on pit road with Carson Hocevar. Also had a run-in on track with, I believe, Carson Hocevar as well. So not entirely indicative of how they ran. They were around a top 10 car, but nothing too flashy. But you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of streakiness in that 20 bunch, and you just want to make sure that they catch it at the right time from a betting, or you catch it at the right time from a betting sense. And I think with the success, the speed at Gateway, there's good reason to have optimism in that 20 camp for this race this weekend. For me, I think we go to these flat, short tracks, especially tracks like Phoenix. You always think of the Penske group, specifically guys like Ryan Blaney, who was, again, tied with Christopher Bell as a co-favorite for the race win. He is the first driver I'm picking as my favorite for this weekend. Ryan Blaney, plus 400 for the race win. The most expensive driver in daily fantasy at $11,000. Finished 18th at Darlington. That snapped a 6-race top 10 streak. However, he is still 22 points to the good, sitting 7th in the standings. So pretty good position here. And looking for a great run at World Wide Technology Raceway. And I think it's finally going to be his turn to win here. Much like Phoenix, where he has yet to win. He has yet to win at Gateway, where both of his teammates, Austin Cindric and Joey Logano, have already gone to victory lane. Ryan Blaney's stats at this track are downright sick for someone who has not won here. And it's very similar in comparison to Phoenix, where he also has not won yet, but he's done just otherworldly stats-wise. Most laps spent inside the top 15, 92.9%. He is the only driver with 90% in that 90% bracket for laps spent inside the top 15. He has the best average running position at Gateway of 5.2, the second best driver rating, and a career best fourth place finish back in 2022. So the first race at Gateway in the Cup Series. Now, he also has the second most laps led combined over all three starts with 115. However, he did finish 24th there last year. And I do want to note, they're bringing the same tire they used at Iowa this year, where Blaney finished fourth in that race. So there was a lot to like about Ryan Blaney for this weekend, obviously. And I also wanted to mention the driver rating as well, because you mentioned it during your analysis. I put part in there during mine as well. Again, not much to go based off of with three races at Gateway in the Cup Series. Driver rating accounts for win, finishes, top 15 finishes, average running position on the lead lap, average speed under green, fastest lap, most laps led, lead lap finishes, and points per race. So that's a lot of numbers and stats to throw at you there, but it basically is a big formula to tell you that which drivers are the best in the field, and that tells you that Ryan Blaney is the second best in the field at Gateway in those three starts. Moving on to my final favorite for this weekend, it's a guy that had a very rough finish last week, and that's going to be Kyle Larson. And as a matter of fact, that entire Hendrick stable looked really rough as a whole last week at Darlington. Kyle Larson, I think, is the best value in the favorites bracket right here, plus 800 for the race win, and an outstanding value in daily fantasy at $9,500. He finished 19th at Darlington. The highest scored Hendrick Motorsports car was Chase Elliott in 17th. However, very misleading. Kyle Larson was a fringe top five car for a bulk of the race, finished fifth in the first stage, sixth in the second stage, and for that, he's still third in the standings, 38 points to the good. And I know there's a very negative stigma around HMS and Gateway that they have not done the best. That mainly applies to guys like Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, William Byron. Kyle Larson, although, has been pretty damn good here, I would say. Last year, he finished 10th. That marked back-to-back top 10 finishes for Kyle Larson at Gateway, finishing a career best fourth the year prior. He is the only HMS driver with top 10s in 2 of 3 starts. He has a lowest finish of 12th, giving him a 8.7 average, good enough for third best in the series. He also is top 10 in driver rating, laps spent in the top 15, and average running position. So you couple that with the fact that he did the tire test here as well in June 2 months ago. I think this bodes very well for Kyle Larson. I think last week is very much a fluke. And I think that while the sports books are maybe underrating him this weekend, undervaluing him as the 5th shortest for the race win, he has the best value by far in this category. Once again, at plus 800 for the race win and $9,500, the cheapest driver in our favorites category for daily fantasy.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to bet against Kyle Larson, but I think that I feel much more secure this week sticking with the Toyotas. Like I was going to bring up the Hendrick Chevys in our loose change segment, which is a little bit later on, but I think that of the Hendrick Chevys, I feel the most confident in Kyle Larson, but I think considering the values, considering the way that the sports books opened up, I feel like the best bet you can make and the safest bet, which is what I want this week, are the Toyotas. And that is why, as we move to our sleepers category here, Cole, I'm sticking with the Toyotas. I'm going to continue to put my money where my mouth is here. Our favorites were Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, and then my Toyotas of Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin. So as far as our sleepers, actually, I'm going to cut myself off here. I just want to be fully transparent. The reason I keep looking to my left is the same reason that what you have on in the background, Cole, is we've got the U.S. Open on, and our paisan Yannick Sinner is up 2 sets right now. We're recording
yes, sir.
Week, and that's why I'm a little bit back and forth, wandering eyes here. But with that being said, right now all my eyes are on the sleepers. We've got Tyler Reddick at plus 1,400, 9,200 in daily fantasy, and as I said with Chase Briscoe, Cole, there's just certain teams and drivers that, regardless of how the first 26 races went, they get hot at the right time. And Tyler Reddick is one of those guys that is coming off a second-place finish last week. Can you believe he almost locked his way into the playoffs? And, man, did he come close to winning that race over Chase Briscoe. He is coming off of that finish, which got him 35 points above the cutoff. He is fourth, which means he's third behind the two drivers that are racing on points right now, and Chase Briscoe being the top driver. So for Tyler Reddick, he's come out, he's put himself in a really good spot, and he is coming off of, speaking of fourth, a career best fourth place finish at Gateway last year. The only other start at this track that he finished the race, he finished in 16th. So we don't have a ton to go off of in general, and we don't have a ton to go off of, especially in the case of Tyler Reddick either. But we do know he is qualified top 10 in all three of his starts here. So he knows his way around this track. He's going to be a driver that is going to have a strong chance to start up front, maybe even lead some laps and go out there and win the race. Like, I think that you're minimizing risk in that sense. For that reason, if he qualifies up front, obviously I'm a little bit more apprehensive to pick him in daily fantasy, where he is on the cheaper side among our sleepers, 9,200 in DFS, kind of like I guess a B tier driver as compared to an A or S tier driver. But Tyler Reddick has had a top 10 driver rating at Gateway. So I feel good about where that team is at. I feel good where that manufacturer is at. And listen, it's not been the year that team expected or hoped for, but I mean, it's a new season. Last week started the new season. You can wipe everything else away. Like, they got the finish they wanted last week. And, you know, that was manufacturer and team wide. Like, Bubba Wallace had a hell of a finish last week too. I think that there's something to be said for the speed, not just with the Gibbs Toyotas, but also 2311. Like, I am fully convinced that this is the way. And as I give you one more sleeper, Cole, I'm just going to come right out and say this is like a hard stretch for a sleeper because he's last week's race winner. Chase Briscoe, I'm picking as a very loose sleeper this week. He is plus 1,000 for the race win, 10,000 in daily fantasy. And I guess the main reason we want to include him here, Cole, is because, like, we're not going to end the episode without talking about him. He may not be like Kyle Larson or Ryan Blaney or Denny Hamlin or Christopher Bell, but we got to mention Chase Briscoe as a sleeper for the win, coming off back-to-back Southern 500 wins. He has finished first or second in 4 of his last 8 starts. That's like ridiculous with an 8.3 average finish. So he is clearly and firmly a championship contender. I've seen what I needed to see. He's a weekly race contender as well. And in terms of his results at Gateway, here's what's on the table. Coming off a career best 17th here last year, which doesn't really pique my attention. He does have a pole here with 20 laps led, both in 2022. And obviously, I think we would both agree that right now, he's in a much better situation than he was in 2022. He did have, in his only Truck Series start here, a runner-up finish with the most laps led and a very similar finish, a similar track that we can compare to, finished second at Iowa. So I'm reading between the tea leaves for Chase Briscoe. This is more of a pick that signals my confidence in where he's at right now than it is about my confidence in how I feel about him at Gateway. So keeping that in mind, but also, again, reading in between the lines of, you know, solid finish last year. He's had mild success here last year. He's coming off, he has a second place finish here in the trucks. Like, I think you wrap all that up, and it leads me to believe that Chase Briscoe is a sleeper for the race win. And that's why he's a sleeper, right? He doesn't have the numbers at Gateway to back up like the guys we had just talked about. So Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, 2 of the best drivers. I guess they are actually not 2 of they are the 2 best drivers in the playoffs so far. They finished first and second. So those are my 2 sleepers this week.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely agree with both those picks. I think I have more cautious optimism in Tyler Reddick just because his whole body of work this season, it really has not been that consistent. And we've seen him become a very temperamental driver. Now, having a runner-up last week at Darlington and going from 15th entering the playoffs to 4th and 35 points to the good, that'll do a lot of great things for your confidence and momentum going forward. So for a guy that finished 4th here last year, that looks great for Tyler Reddick. As you mentioned, a lot of momentum on the Toyota side in general. And for Briscoe, yeah, I mean, the case for him being a sleeper is that he hasn't done well here in the past. But like we've said numerous times this entire season, you can disregard all those prior numbers from his experience in the Cup Series with SHR because it's a completely different animal. He has ascended to the talent that we knew he would be in the Cup Series when he entered the scene in 2022. So love both those picks. You're feeling good about the Toyotas. I feel good about the Penske Fords. The Penske Fords have been flat out dominant at World Wide Technology Raceway since they started going here in the Cup Series back in 2022, when Joey Logano, of course, won the inaugural race here. Joey Logano, same value for the race win as Chase Briscoe, plus 1,000. Really great value for daily fantasy at $9,000. Finished 20th at Darlington, and he's now 13th in the standings, 3 points under the round of 12 bubble. And that's pretty much been his floor, and kind of what we kind of expect from Logano this entire season. It's either he's going to wreck or have some sort of penalty, or he'll finish with a floor of like 20th or 15th. So it's been very inconsistent, obviously, as a whole this entire year for the 22 team. But as we've seen time and time again in this current playoff format, that is when Joey Logano and this Penske team in general rounds into form and just shows out when it matters the most. And what's also going in his favor is the fact that he is maybe the king of St. Louis. As I mentioned just at the top, he won the inaugural race here. He is also the only driver in the Cup Series to place top 5 in all 3 Gateway starts. His third place average finish is obviously best in the series. He has the second best average running position, and as well as second most laps spent in the top 15 with 88.2%. So he has just been flat out dominant, really fast at this track. Also top 3 in driver ratings. So I mentioned all those that formula up at the top of the favorite segment. Really, really good numbers there. And also finished runner-up in his lone Xfinity Series start at Gateway. So he stood the test of time. He has a ton of laps at this track in the developmental ranks. And I know it hasn't been pretty holistically this year for Logano, but lots to love this weekend at St. Louis for him, as well as his teammate Austin Cindric, who is plus 1,600 for the race win, and another great value in daily fantasy at $8,500, coming off a really respectable 12th place finish at Darlington. And get this, over his last 7 starts, 16th or better in 6 starts finished with a 16.4 average finish. So what we're seeing over the last 7 starts is he has a really, really nice floor. Top 15, borderline top 15 is a really, really good number for a driver like Austin Cindric, who is now in the playoffs, obviously, and who hasn't had a whole lot of consistency there his entire career. So I like that a lot going into a track where he won here last year. Won at Gateway 2024 with 53 laps led. He's also finished 13th or better in all 3 starts, posting the second best average finish in the series at 8.3, right behind Logano, his teammate. Also top 5 in laps spent running top 15 and average running position, and just outside the top 5, 6th best driver rating in the field. So some more numbers here that you can kind of go in favor of Austin Cindric. Stage points scored in every single start, 1 stage win, and qualified front row in 2 of those 3 starts. Never qualified lower than 10th. So I know this is a driver that hasn't had a whole lot of promise in his young career to be shown as a sleeper outside of maybe the drafting tracks, but he has proven time and time again to be a very reliable driver at Gateway since the Cup Series has been coming here since 2022.
Yeah, I love the Austin Cindric pick. I think, he's coming off a respectable finish at Darlington to where, like, those teams that underperformed, he was able to jump them in the standings. Like, you look at where things are at right now. He's 12 points up in 9th. He's ahead of guys like Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, SVG, Joey Logano. Like, that team's in a good spot. And I think that this is the race that they had circled in the first round. Like, you made it through the Lady in Black. You made it through a tough week at Darlington. Now you go to a track that really should suit you in Austin Cindric. So I like where your head's at with that pick. And, we'll see what we get with Joey Logano. I feel like he's been one of the wild card drivers that's been kind of really hard to predict this year. But if there's one thing you're not going to bet on, or bet against, I should say, it is Joey Logano in the playoffs. Like, he just has the clutch gene this time of year. So those are the 4 sleepers: Logano, Cindric, Reddick, and Briscoe. As for value picks this week, Cole, let's kick things off here with the guy we've many times liked to call Michael Moneybags McDowell. It's not been a good year for Michael Moneybags McDowell, but when we have said his name, he's been one of the best drivers out there. So listen up. He is plus 20,000 for the win this week, 5,900 in daily fantasy. Those 2 marks make him the most, the longest shot of all the 12 drivers we're mentioning. So he's coming off a 33rd place finish at Darlington. It's been a weird year because there's been speed at Spire Motorsports. We know that. So Only 3 top 10s for Michael McDowell. That doesn't really inspire much confidence. Neither do 10 top 15s. But here's the story with Michael McDowell at Gateway. He has led 30 plus laps in 2 of his 3 starts at Gateway, and he has been top 5 in laps led over the course of NASCAR's Cup Series trek in Gateway. So you've got the names up there like the Christopher Bells and the Ryan Blaney's. And then you've got Michael McDowell thrown into the mix. So how could he not be one of our values this week? In both starts, he has finished outside the top 15, but the start without the laps led, he placed 9th. So pick your poison. It's been a race where he's led some laps, or the races where he led some laps, and then the one where he didn't was the one where he finished in the top 10. Last year, started on the pole here, led 40 laps, and he is also top 15 in driver rating and average running position. So Michael McDowell is a guy that we have obviously have tempered expectations for with the way things have gone this year. Like, I don't really foresee Michael McDowell as somebody we would have expected to talk about in this episode, but if there's a track that he has defied a lot of his other career norms, Gateway would be that. And I want to preface this too by also saying that last year was a lot better for Michael McDowell than this year was. So I'm a little bit cautious there, but obviously there's caution baked into a driver who's plus 20,000 for the race win. So Michael McDowell is a name on my radar. You can get him at a top 10 in this race at plus 1,500. So plus 1,500, that's like the same odds you can get at Austin Cindric to win the race. He's plus 1,600. So Michael McDowell at plus 1,500 is absolutely worth a sprinkle to finish in the top 10. Might even be a big money bet. But I want to talk about another Spire driver because I mentioned the speed that's been there. One of the drivers that I was excited to see make a run in the playoffs that didn't make it in was Carson Hocevar, who could also play spoiler. He is plus 3,000 for the race win. He is 7,000 in daily fantasy. So if you can afford him in DFS over Michael McDowell, here's why you might want to consider that. He scored his 7th top 10 of the season at Darlington to go along with 10 top 15s. And he's been one of those guys trying to play spoiler all year. So he can be a playoff disruptor who is coming off an 8th place finish at Gateway last year. That's before all the success that he has had this year as a disruptor. And he also had his career best finish in the Truck Series of 4th year. He also finished 8th at Iowa. So, speed for Spire this year. Hocevar has been a guy that has shown the ability to run up front, lead laps, and honestly, come really close to winning races. So Hocevar is another guy. He is not as much of a value as McDowell, but there's a reason for that, right? He's shown more of a propensity to run up front and to log finishes that are going to make you some money and lead laps that are going to make you money. So I'll take a couple Spire cars as my 2 value picks of the week here, Cole.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that you could say about both these drivers in that camp as a whole Spire, but I think they could be some sneaky good values. And that's why Michael McDowell's on this outline. I mean, 5,900 in daily fantasy is a great value. It'll afford you to get drivers like Ryan Blaney or Denny Hamlin as an ace in your daily fantasy lineup. But also, back in 2022 and even last year, Michael McDowell's a guy where I'm watching these races and I'm like, he can really win this thing. He has legitimate speed here. Right. I know it's a different team in FRM and Spire, but the speed's legitimate. Carson Hocevar has had race-winning pace on multiple occasions this year. Ton of top 10, 7 on the year, as mentioned. So there's no reason why they cannot replicate the speed they've had in 2025 and parlay it into a good result at Gateway this season. Carson Hocevar, not much else has to be said. He's been the best car in that Spire camp all year, but in being very aggressive and ruffling a lot of feathers, there is the potential that he could see some retaliation this weekend because we saw it here back in 2022 with Ross Chastain. This is a track where it's not quite a short track, but you really can't hide here. And he got run over, Ross Chastain, by guys like Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin. So this is a track that could come back to bite him this Sunday. We'll see, but I think the speed's going to be there. 2 really good values in Hocevar and Michael McDowell. For me, I'm going to go ride the momentum here with Eric Jones. Eric Jones now is riding back-to-back top 5 finishes for the first time since 2020. And this year, he has 11 top 15s and 5 top 10s. So I know it hasn't been the flashiest year for this team, but there's been a lot to love about the Legacy Motor Club cars in both Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek in 2025, especially lately. He's plus 10,000 for the race win, and $6,500 in daily fantasy makes him a great value, especially, again, if you want to get guys like Ryan Blaney or Denny Hamlin in your lineup for this weekend. But Eric Jones is also one of those guys like Kyle Larson that tested here the Goodyear tire test back in June. So he has extra laps logged here. Finished a career best 7th in 2022. And then he finished 26th after starting 22nd last year, which I'm not reading a whole lot into given the performance that this team has stepped up on in 2025. He did finish 16th at Iowa with the same tire they're bringing to Gateway this weekend. So if you can get me a top 15, 16th place day out of Eric Jones at Gateway as a value pick, that would be a great driver for your daily fantasy lineup. And again, taking a lot of stock into the fact that he did the tire test here back in June and can definitely ride the momentum of these back-to-back top fives into a potentially a top 10 day once again here at Gateway, where he's done it once before back in 2022. And then I'm going to go ride the Ross Chastain train as well this weekend. I was high on him last week. Not much to really brag about the entire season for him, but he turned it up. And honestly, I think outside of Kyle Larson, he looked like the best Chevrolet in the entire field last weekend. He's plus 3,000 for the race win, $7,900 daily fantasy. Very misleading 11th place finish at Darlington because he started 6th, finished 4th in stage 1, and just outside the top 5 in stage 2. So he was very much a top 5 car the entirety of that Darlington race. Just got caught back on a later pit cycle in that final stage, but 4th most stage points on the day, 4th most points as well overall on the day of the playoff drivers. And for that, he is now 8th in the standings, 21 points to the good. So looking pretty good for Ross Chastain, making his 3rd postseason appearance in the Cup Series. And lots to love about him this weekend for St. Louis because he is a former winner at World Wide Technology Raceway back in 2019 in the Truck Series. He also finished 8th here back in 2022 in the Cup Series. Finished 12th last year. Lowest finish of 22nd, giving him a 14th place average finish. So really, really solid floor for Ross Chastain. I think this is a track he's been promoting quite a bit as well during his media tour over the last few weeks in the Cup Series. So lots of good momentum, good buzz on his side for this weekend. Also top 10 in laps spent in the top 15, driver rating, average running position, and he's also got lead lap finishes in all 3 starts here at Gateway. So I think he's a driver that's not on a lot of people's radars for this weekend, but a guy that can surprise for a top 10 for sure at Gateway in Ross Chastain.
And he's another driver that I feel like is in that group that kind of has, in my opinion, renewed life for the playoffs, right? Like they were expecting a better regular season. When you come out and you start the new season, so to speak, and you go out there and you're suddenly 8th in the points, 20 points up after the first playoff race, like you got to feed into that momentum. And I think Ross is a guy that definitely is capable of doing that. So solid about that pick. And of course, the LMC pick. So our values, Eric Jones, Ross Chastain, Michael McDowell, Carson Hocevar. Choose your sports book of choice and see where you can make the most value. We should say that every week. But I did dangle a little bit of loose change, Cole. This is where we, a segment where we discuss like that change that's stuck in your pocket that you forget about. So there's like drivers such as William Byron and Chase Elliott and even Alex Bowman, 300 Chevys that we have not talked about today. And that's because we alluded before at the beginning of our favorite section that this was an abysmal start to the playoffs for Hendrick Motorsports, which was very unlike that camp to start the year. How concerned are you right now?
I mean, there's reason for concern for sure. I mean, seeing how they showed up at Darlington or lack thereof outside of Kyle Larson was a major, major eye-opening thing. But then you take into account the fact that this organization as a whole fails to really have speed at not just Gateway, but all the flat short tracks in general. It's alarming. It's alarming to me. Not so much for Kyle Larson. I mentioned the stats at the top as a favorite. 2 top 10s. Did the tire test here back in June. But for guys like Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, specifically Bowman and Elliott, I have a lot of concern for this weekend. In fact, William Byron's the only other driver at HMS with the top 10 at this track in those 3 Cup Series starts. Only one at that as well. So obviously the reigning regular season champion, you feel better about William Byron, but they were just a complete non-factor last week at all. So I think it would be ignorant for us to just glaze the Hendrick cars and say, oh, they're the winningest team in NASCAR. They're the 4 best in the sport. They're going to be an automatic lock for the round of 12. It's not that simple. We see it every single year. There's guys like I thinking Dak Keselowski, Kyle Busch, even Kyle Larson, who didn't make it far into the playoffs. And this could be a case where you see someone like an Alex Bowman or even Chase Elliott who doesn't make that round of 12 because they had a really rough start at Darlington. They don't perform very well at Gateway, and even Bristol's a tough sell outside of Kyle Larson and William Byron. So nothing is off the table in the postseason. And a long-winded way of me saying that these 3 Hendrick Chevys, I'll say, in Elliott, Byron, and Bowman need to be on their shit for this weekend, because if not, it could be a very, very long rest of the season after the round of 16 wraps up.
Yeah, there you have it. Let's talk big money bets here, Cole. These are our favorite prop bets of the week, which were not successful last week. We did mention some drivers, specifically all of the top 3 and 5 of the top 10 and 6 of the top 11. But our big money bets ended up going 1 and 6 last week. Our only one that hit was Chase Briscoe in the top 5. So trying to rebound from that massacre. What are we looking at for prop bets this week?
Yeah, I do want to preface also before we give our big money bets for this weekend. Looking at how we did last week, you could expect likely similar results because it's going to be a very strategy-heavy race. So for that reason, you want to just really ingest all those 12 drivers and the analysis that we gave with them for this weekend and kind of pick who you feel best about, because, although we whiffed on the over-unders and the prop finishers, we still had 5 drivers finish inside the top 10. And there were pretty long shots at that too. They weren't all favorites. So just take this with a grain of salt, but these are the best values, in my opinion, for big money bets and over-under bets for this weekend. I think, obviously, Logano top 5 plus 120 is a great one to consider. The only driver in the series to finish top 5 in all 3 starts at Gateway. Again, apprehensions given his performance the entire season, but this is a team that has the clutch gene. They turn it on when it matters the most in the postseason, and they've been pretty much unbeatable at Gateway since the Cup Series has been going here. Kyle Larson, top 5 plus 110. I think anytime you can get Kyle Larson at above even payout for a top 5 finish, regardless of the track and his history, that's one that you got to at least consider. And I think would at least sprinkle some money down on for a top 5.
Sure.
And then, of course, Chase Briscoe, top 5 plus 130. I know the numbers are not in his favor historically at this track, but we mentioned it a few weeks ago. This is a driver that I likened to William Byron to start the year off. When they give you an above even payout for a top 5 for Chase Briscoe, you got to take it. He's just been so damn good these last 8 starts. Like you said, top 2 over his last 4 of 8 starts. So he's just been lights out, coming off a dominant performance at Darlington. Like him a lot this weekend to finish at least top 5, again at plus 130. For the over-under, better, worse finishes this weekend, not very high on them. There's 2 props I like quite a bit in Ross Chastain's 13.5, so to finish better than 13th. And Eric Jones, 17.5 is a really good prop there. I would definitely be inclined to hit that one better than 17.5 for a guy that did the tire test here 2 months prior and is riding back-to-back top 5s. And to give you one more to consider, Ryan Blaney to finish top 5, better than 5.5. He is top 2 in every statistical category at this track. The only thing missing to his resume is a win. He is the only other driver at Team Penske that's winless at this track, and this very well could be his time. Lock him in for a top 5 for sure this weekend. Last one that to consider for head-to-head parlays. Not many options this weekend. I did like Briscoe over Bowman easily. His prop was like minus 190 to finish over Alex Bowman, which, all things considered, that's a great value. So you could parlay that again with even Briscoe's top 5 prop, Larson's top 5 prop, and it's a pretty good one to throw in there to bring up your overall payout.
Yeah, that's sound advice. I think that, siding with Chase Briscoe, siding with the guys like we talked about, Kyle Larson, it's probably your easiest bet for this week. I'm not crazy about the head-to-heads either, because at minus 190, you're basically asking for 2 things to happen in order to parlay that with something. So our DFS lineup this week, Cole, let's run through this real quick. We got Ryan Blaney as our ace at 11,000. You got Joey Logano at 9,000. Austin Cindric, 8,500. Ross Chastain at 7,900. Carson Hocevar at 7,000. And Eric Jones at 6,500. So these are obviously 6 of the 12 drivers we mentioned. And I feel pretty good about this lineup. I feel better about this lineup than I do about a lot of those prop bets, to be honest with you.
You hit the nail on the head right there. I was just going to say, this is a weekend, like I said, it's going to be very unpredictable, very strategy heavy. And for that reason, I think there's more value in betting daily fantasy over the prop finishes for this weekend. And it's one you can have a lot of fun with, too. I mean, like I said, it's going to be very unpredictable race. And with the analysis that we gave for those 12 drivers, you can really make a very competitive lineup here. Having all three Penske Fords in here, including the most expensive driver in Ryan Blaney to lead this thing off, is huge. I think it's going to give you a lot of points in your total for laps led, laps spent inside the top 15, stage points, you name it, and finish, obviously. That's big weighting portion. That's going to be huge for giving you a successful daily fantasy lineup. And then, yeah, I think I gave my confidence to Ross Chastain. I think Carson Osavar is a bit of a hit or miss just because he has been very aggressive. You could see some retaliation this weekend, and it's been pretty much get a top 10 or wreck trying. So that could sink you. But to have Eric Jones back-to-back top fives, did the tire test here back in June to be your foundation for this thing, I think it's a really, really good way to start this thing off. And it gives you the affordability to get guys like Ryan Blaney or Denny Hamlin as your ace in your lineup. So overall, feel great about this, and I would be more inclined to go with the daily fantasy option over under props, head-to-head parlays, and even the prop finishes.
Let's put our money where our mouth is here, Cole. We started a segment about halfway through the year of giving our listeners a hypothetical $50. So if you and I were having a bankroll $50, what would we do with it this week? And this is one of those weeks, like we've both been touting this daily fantasy lineup, where I kind of want to dedicate some of that $50 budget to the daily fantasy lineup. And it's going to depend on what contest you can find to enter. But I like the idea of maybe a $15 pool, or if you can do like a $10 and a $5 pool. But long story short, I'm dedicating $15 of this budget towards our DFS lineup this week. And then I really like Chase Briscoe's plus top 5 odds at plus 130. You know, that was one of our big money bets. So I like the idea of $10 on Chase Briscoe for a top 5. So half of the budget, I'm going with $15 towards DFS. I'm going with $10 towards, $15 on DFS, $10 on a Chase Briscoe top 5.
Yep, 25 to play with here. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bold here. I'm going to go $15 on Kyle Larson to finish inside the top 5. Again, I just think having a value like Kyle Larson above even payout for a top 5, you got to take that. And just taking into account the fact that he has back-to-back top 10s here, he did the tire test back in June. I think that is going to bode very well for him this weekend. And, like, again, there's a very negative stigma around HMS and Gateway, but Kyle Larson has been the anomaly. He has a couple of misleading finishes, too, because due to various circumstances as well. So he has not been bad by any stretch of the imagination at Gateway. And I think he's a driver that many bettors and sports books are overlooking this weekend for those reasons I just mentioned. But if they're giving you plus money for a top 5 on Kyle Larson, you got to take it. I'll throw $15 on that. And then we've got $10 to play around with here. I'll go $10 on Ryan Blaney to get the win. Again, both his teammates have wins here at Gateway. It's leading up to a Ryan Blaney victory once again this weekend at Gateway. Again, he had 6 race top 10 streaks snapped this past week at Darlington. Very fluky race, in my opinion. But he has been the best of the best at Gateway. Again, like top 5 or the best in laps spent inside the top 15, second best driver rating, best average running position, and up there for average finishing position as well. So I think this is all amounting to another big Penske day, and specifically Ryan Blaney race winning day at Gateway.
So it sounds like you showed your cards a little early ahead of our race winner picks, but
yeah,
that is our 5 bets we're going to use on this $50 budget. 15 of that dedicated towards our DFS lineup. Another 15 of that dedicated towards a top 5 for Chase Briscoe. Another 15. No, I have that wrong, don't I? The other 10? No, I did this wrong. Hold on. All right. So we got 15 on DFS.
Yes.
It was 10 on Chase Briscoe top 5.
Yes. 15 Kyle Larson top 5 and
yes.
10 for a Ryan Blaney win.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I was close. I almost had that. All right.
Yeah.
The point was made. It's time to make the point of our winner predictions here, Cole. I got first pick this week, and I'm going to stick with what I've been saying this whole episode. I think it's going to be a Toyota, and I'm going to call Christopher Bell's bluff here. Like we've said, he's so streaky. The bad finishes come with worse finishes. I think this is different. I think that despite the 29th place finish, you mentioned before, like that team had a great race going up until the troubles. I think that they're going to come out and they're going to be a dominant force. I think they're going to lead the most laps, and I think that the 20 car is going to win the race. That's my pick for this week at Gateway.
It's a safe bet. I mean, he swept both stages last year, led the most laps. He's been really damn good here. So I'm going to go with another unsurprising and really boring pick for my winner. And Ryan Blaney, again, showed my cards very early, but I just think this is amounting to a Ryan Blaney win. So we both have the two co-favorites as our favorites for the win this weekend. But again, just speaking holistically about this episode, going to be very strategy heavy. So not all these are going to hit, but you feel most confident in the Toyotas. I feel most confident in the Penske Fords. Those are the two manufacturers and teams and drivers that you should be focused on this weekend from a betting sense. So pick your poison between the JGR and 2311 bunch, the three Penske Fords in Blaney, Logano, and Cindric, and run with that for your prop bets, for your race winner bets, you name it, and the money should follow. Along those same lines, for my sleeper pick, I'm going to pick a driver that we had not mentioned on this entire episode. It'll also be a playoff driver, and it'll be a driver from the Penske Alliance group in Josh Berry for Wood Brothers Racing. Again, just speaking on the speed and success of the Penske cars at Gateway since Cup Series has been going here since 2022. I think that'll parlay to a really good run for the number 21 team and Josh Berry for this weekend. And again, it's like a short intermediate track. He won at Las Vegas earlier this year, so there's speed in that camp. He had a very early exit, lap one, not even lap one last week at Darlington. So this will be a redemption race. I think this is a driver in a team that could finish top 10. Book it.
All right, I'll book it. I'm going to book, to no surprise here, call another Toyota. By the way, before I give my sleeper pick, I want to also point out the fact that Toyota is plus 140 to be the winning manufacturer. Ford is plus 180. So I don't mind the idea. Like when you're as confident as I am in the Toyotas this week and as confident as you are in the Fords, I don't mind the idea of throwing $25 on that or whatever your units are, like a pretty sizable chunk. That in and of itself could be a big money bet. I think that it's obviously, it could be a toss up like these bets always are with the manufacturers. But when you feel as strongly about them as you do, like we do this week, I feel like it's not a bad week to sprinkle on that. So I'm going to stick in the Toyota camp, and I want to take the hot hand, again, minimizing risk this week at a track that has probably more unknowns than any playoff track we're going to other than Talladega, and that is taking an LMC Toyota in Eric Jones. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. I'm not going to regurgitate everything you just said, but he is 6,500 plus 6,500 for the race win. And listen, top five for Eric Jones, like, it's not out of the question. Like back-to-back top fives. And for Jones this week, what was the top five odds for him? I'm trying to look on the run. Plus 800, excuse me. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not going to go out there and say he's going to finish top five again, but that's as good as a pick as I have for a sleeper, which is any driver outside the top 15 by our standards.
I mean, he would have been my sleeper as well had I not gone Josh Berry. Just because, again, he did the tire test here in June. That should parlay to a really good result on Sunday. And, yeah, lots to love as of late. Back-to-back top fives. Just in general, that entire camp has looked great these last few months, taking a major step up in performance. So, love the pick. I think the analysis was on point for this weekend.
I agree.
I know there were a lot of numbers and regurgitation on stats and whatnot on my end, so apologies on that. But there's a lot you could take away from this weekend. Again, just take it all with a grain of salt in terms of betting. Pick your poison, but it's going to be Fords and Toyotas this weekend, in my opinion.
You know, I think we have a good omen brewing here. We just dropped the jack on the most important NASCAR betting stop of the day, and Yannick Sinner has emerged victorious at the U.S. Open. So,
that's right.
You know, that was like the background storyline that kept you and I from being locked in for this episode. But I think that there's a good omen here. You know, we stayed on track and we were upfront about the fact that, you know, this is a match that matters here, right? And
of course,
he's moving on. He wins the match right when we drop the jack on the most important NASCAR betting stop of the day. So at @the_money stop, follow us on social media for the entire SpeedFreaks crew. Cole, final thoughts?
Yeah, one more thing, just to kind of put a bow on this and make it more betting driven, obviously. Yannick Sinner, you could bet him to win the U.S. Open. He's won the last 3 hardcourt majors this year. You could bet him to win the U.S. Open and bet a Ryan Blaney or whoever to win the Cup Series race. So you parlay that, it's a big payday, and it's also on Sunday too. So
Oh man,
watch the Cup race, watch the U.S. Open.
NFL Sunday too.
Yeah, it's
Oh my God.
lots and lots of money to be made.
Man,
Yes.
can you let's get a 3-sport parlay going here. Let's get Sinner to win the US Open.
Yeah.
Let's get like Blaney to win the race. And let's
Mhm.
get, I don't know, pick your favorite NFL bet. Pick the Broncos spread or something. Like
Yeah. You can go even bolder. Go for like anytime touchdown for like, I don't know, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry anytime touchdown. Anytime touchdown.
Oof,
You know what? Let's parlay that or put it something together for socials.
Yep.
Get it out there and we'll let it ride.
We'll make it a Sunday game. So this race is going to be at 3:00 p.m. All right.
Yep.
The U.S. Open should wrap up a little before that. Maybe let's do an anytime touchdown in like the late slate of NFL games or the Sunday nighter. We'll get that out on social media. We're gonna do a hat trick on Sunday. All right. Yannick Sinner to win the Open. We'll pick a driver to win the race, and we'll pick an anytime touchdown score. So I think it's a great way to end this episode. This is gonna be it's gonna be one of the best Sundays of sports all year. I mean, soak it all up. We got baseball still going on. We got the first week of NFL football, the U.S. Open. We got Gateway. Race 2 of the playoffs, man.
And I'll be there. I'll be in Gateway.
Oh my God, that's right. That's right.
So it's going to be a hell of a weekend. I'm so pumped.
Let's do it. Oh my God, this is going to be great. All right. For the entire Speed Freaks crew, for Cole, Steven, follow us at the _money stop. Handles are on your screen at Cole _Cusumano_ for the audio listeners at Steven _Cusumano as well. Your most important NASCAR betting stop of the day. Do it with us. Let's win some money this week, all right? Let's do it. Come on.